ASMR Who. And in this video, I'm going to be looking at technically the fourth volume, but the second volume of the ongoing 11th Doctor Chronicles range with Jacob Dudman and Safiyya Ingar as Valarie Lockwood. So technically it's volume 4 of the 11th Doctor Chronicles, but it's the second box set with that dynamic in it being full cast. It's called All of Time and Space, and it's 3 stories again. This was released early last year, so it was about a year ago this was released. And following on, of course, from Geronimo, which I really enjoyed all 3 stories in that previous set, especially the first and third. The Inheritance and the End were both fantastic stories, I thought. This second box set, All of Time and Space, I think overall is a little bit weaker, but still very good. So you start off with All of Time and Space, so the box set is called All of Time and Space, but the first story is also called All of Time and Space. And the credited writer is Ellery, but that's not it. I think it's actually written by Tim Foley, but the story is about a writer. The main sort of character you follow is a writer named Ellery in sort of 50s London, I think, and he's coming up with this idea for this play. He wants to produce this stage show called Doctor Who, and he's pitching it, and it's about these 2 characters, the Doctor and Valarie, and he's pitching it to this stage owner, and then he goes home and he hears the Doctor and Valarie talking to him on the radio, and then the stage owner shows up, but there's lots of like duplicates of him, and there's this unfolding mystery of, what's going on. How does this guy have the idea of the show Doctor Who? I don't think he ever probably meets the Doctor and Valarie. They're just talking to him through different. At one point they're on the radio. At one point they're like Punch and Judy puppets. At one point the Doctor's talking to him through a comic strip. So it's interesting. It plays with the medium of audio in a really interesting way, and it was decent. The main actor in this, who plays Ellery is he's called Leroy Bonsu, and he's really good. He's very strong, and the characters are kind of a little bit quirky and a little bit cowardly almost, but he carries the story because the Doctor and Valarie are more supporting in this story. I did find, though, it's a story it's about a writer and about the concept of Doctor Who as a show, basically. And I talked about this a little bit when I talked about the main range story, The Holy Terror. And I think I listened to those 2 stories not too far apart, and so that they kind of have a similar thing where they're stories about writers and about storytelling, and it can kind of be a little bit. That was just my dog. It's my dog. The stories about writers can kind of be a little bit. Sometimes I find them a bit obvious in terms of what they have to say about writing and what this story tries to say about character archetypes and stereotypes, and about Doctor Who as a whole, from a writer's perspective. It was interesting, and it was an interesting mystery. You spend the majority of the story, not sure what's going on or why it's happening, and I found the explanation a little bit. I mostly got it, but it lost me a little bit in the end, and the conclusion especially, I think didn't work. It just didn't land, for me anyway, which was a little disappointing, I suppose, but it was a fun story. I enjoyed it, but not my favourite. Then we move on to The Yearn by Angus Donegan, which I think this one is possibly, I don't want to say the weakest of the box set, but I think it's the least interesting, where it's this sort of underground bunker on this planet there's 3 people in this bunker, and people are disappearing, and then the TARDIS disappears. This one has interesting elements, and there's a really great performance here from, her name is Mia Tomlinson, I believe, who plays a character called Roanna, who basically has this romantic connection with Valarie, and they sort of set up this romance, and she's really strong, but the rest of the story was decent, but especially as it, in the resolution, I got a little bit lost, a little bit kind of confused exactly as to what was going on. I did, to be fair to this story, I did listen to it while sort of travelling, so perhaps I wasn't able to give it my full attention in the way that with some other stories I can do that. I have done that. But I just think that the other 2 stories in this set are kind of metatextual, whereas this story isn't. Although in a way it is, because there's comments on that you have this romance plot with Valarie and Roanna, and the Doctor's like, well, do you want to stay? Because I've had companions who have stayed with people they've only just met, and this story is very much like, yeah, no, that's not, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't just stay with someone you've only just met, and they wouldn't just come along with you immediately. And so Roanna is sort of set up as this recurring character. I believe she does show up in the subsequent sets. Valarie gives her the TARDIS phone number, which is basically her phone number, and yeah, that dynamic is really interesting and is played really well, and was really sweet. The rest of the story was kind of, I don't want to say superfluous, because I did enjoy it, but I think of the 11th Doctor Chronicles stories, I think The Yearn is possibly the weakest for me personally so far anyway. It just kind of passed me by a little bit. Perhaps I need to listen to it again, I don't know, but I thought it was decent but not great. But then the final story in this set is Curiosity Shop. This is by James Goss, and this was definitely the standout. It's a really quite dark story, quite sad story. It's a big story for Valarie. It's a very, it's great accomplishment for Jacob Dudman as a performer. It was not only fantastic as Matt Smith throughout these stories and throughout these sets, but in this story he plays a character called Mr. Foreman, who owns a junkyard, and he has this big blue box that he calls Barbara, and you meet him and you think, oh, this kind of sounds like the first Doctor, and he has this conversation with Valarie, who is waiting for the Doctor. And then there's also this side character called Golas, who's played by Derek Griffiths, who is a great foil for Valarie. Not foil, but he's a great side character. He has these little asides with Valarie where she talks to him about the Doctor and stuff, and he becomes quite a caring presence for her because the Doctor's not here. And you have this opening scene with Mr. Foreman, who you can tell is Jacob Dudman, but he's doing the first Doctor, and then you meet him again, and he sounds like John Pertwee, and then you meet him again, and he sounds like Tom Baker, and it sort of cycles through. I don't want to spoil it too much if you haven't listened to it, but it's a fantastic story, and what Jacob Dudman does as a performer vocally is nothing short of incredible. It's an actor, it's a vocal actor at the top of their game. The confidence with which he performs and the way he's able to mimic other performances. And I think that's the thing, is that it's not just impressions. There's an element of that in there, of course, but he's always performing. He's never just doing an impression. He's doing a performance, and he's fantastic at it. And this story is really sad. As I say, it's quite dark. The things that Valarie goes through is emotionally and physically put through the ringer and quite literally torn apart. They really play with the idea of her being a cyborg, especially well in this story, and it was just really powerful, really sad. Again, has this sort of metatextual element to it, but it's a story you wouldn't be able to do in any other medium. I don't think it would work on TV in the same way it works in audio. And it's just a powerhouse performances from both Jacob Dudman and Safiyya Ingar as Valarie, who, Jacob Dudman is clearly doing a lot in this story, and even though on the surface Safiyya Ingar doesn't have as much to do, doesn't seem like they're doing as much, they're carrying the emotional weight of the story in their performance, and it's brilliant. So I think it's a fantastic story. It's easily my favourite from this set. And yeah, one of the strongest stories, definitely up there with The Inheritance and The End. They're just brilliant. And yeah, Curiosity Shop is a real winner. For this set, as I say, I think the set overall was good. They're still good stories. It's not quite as strong as Geronimo, but I did really love. I liked all these stories, and I'm having such a good time with the range, the ongoing range. I cannot wait to continue next with Broken Hearts, and yeah, I'm just having a really good time. Victory of the Doctor is just released, so I'm catching up. I've got obviously Broken Hearts, and then the next 3 stories in the next set to listen to, and then I will absolutely be listening to Victory of the Doctor. And yeah, I'm just massively looking forward to that set, to the culmination of this ongoing story. But yeah, this set was decent. I enjoyed it. If you haven't listened to it, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend this set specifically, but I would recommend the ongoing 11th Doctor Chronicles range, starting with Geronimo, and so I wouldn't skip this set at all. Obviously, it's absolutely essential, and the stories are really fun and really good, and even in the Yearn, which I think is again not necessarily the weakest, but the least interesting, and the least unique. Even in that, there's great character dynamics in this romantic element. So there's great things in all 3 stories, and as I say, Curiosity Shop especially is a wonderful piece of drama. It's fantastic. So yeah, those are my thoughts on all of Time and Space. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. Let me know what you thought of this set if you've listened to it. And yeah, please do like and comment, subscribe, all those YouTuber things. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next time for Broken Hearts.